Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to Newdeath Gaming. My name is Mike, and we're going to be having a first listen of a brand new title for the channel, which is called Choice of Rebels. The developer, Choices LLC, is a very well-known developer. I've done a previous game of Choices LLC's, which was called Choice of Dragons, and you can definitely find that game. I will try to link it in my description. If I don't, I'll do it in the future. Someone can remind me to do so. But I've definitely played through most of Choice of Dragons, and I loved it. It was awesome. There are several of these games in the series, and you can even subscribe to it. So let me give you a brief overview of how this first listening process works on Newdeath Gaming. I basically go through some of the menus if I haven't already done so. I talk about the accessibility right out the box, no workarounds, things like that. If I'm doing a workaround, you're going to experience me doing the workaround right when I'm doing the Let's Play. Another thing is that I am not sponsored or supported by any of the developers, but I try to be as completely fair and as loving and kind and inclusive as possible when I do these first listens. I'm not here to bash developers. I'm not here to complain. I'm not here to say, hey, you do this, hey, you do that. No, I'm here to completely support developers who make games for people who are blind, visually impaired, visually diverse, as I like to say in the channel sometimes. That is what I'm here to do. I'm here to support the community. I'm here to provide resources when it comes to games for the community to know about. And if you like these games, please don't be shy about mentioning Newdeath Gaming and myself, Michael Gray. Don't be shy about going to the iOS store and just pumping these games up and giving them really high ratings and leaving really constructive reviews. And another valuable thing about games that are accessible to the blind and visually impaired, visually diverse, is that these games help developers who are continuing to make games like this for people in our community. By supporting them, we are supporting future titles of these types. So you definitely don't want to be shy about supporting games like this. The cost for this game is, let's get all the things out of the way that are going to possibly be something to take into consideration. The price of this game is $6.99. It is definitely worth it. The accessibility so far that I've gone through with the menus is top-notch. It's superb, it's clean, it's very nice. The vocals are definitely great when working with your voiceover. The swiping and the voiceover controls are precise and clean, no lags, no bugs. But again, you're going to experience it with me, which is why we call it a first listen. This is the first time I've ever played it. I never play the game before I do the video, for the most part. So, now that I've completed that process, let's get right into it. I hope to do a good little 20 or so minutes, giving you a good first listen. I have a little bit of background ambience being played by noise. If you're interested in that app, I will eventually get around to linking it in my description. All right, so let's get going here. Choice of Rebels. This is going to be your kind of typical choices game with a bit of an RPG to it. I'm wondering if it's going to have a bit of an idol. Is it going to have a bit of an RPG to it? It's going to have a bit of a kind of like novel kind of thing to it. So I really love this kind of game. This is my cup of tea, but let's go ahead and give it a try. So I've already gone through the settings. I made a couple of settings corrections. I turned on animation between pages. Why? I don't know. I don't see any animations, but I turned it on to see if it had any effect in how I played. There were several other little things, so definitely go through the settings yourself. I don't really feel like going through that would be very exciting for you all, but definitely check it out. It's all accessible.
Restart, dim, share, button. Restart, dim, play, button.
There are other games that you can find easily here, so go through all these menus.
Home, heading, play, button.
Let's go ahead and start to play.
Play. Home, back button.
All right.
Choice of rebels, heading.
Well, we got headings up.
Show stats, button.
We got show stats.
Author's note, image. Logo order, author's note J.
All right, let's turn my speaking rate down a little bit.
Edit. Vertical navigation, form controls, links, headings, sounds, on, audio ducking, volume, 80%, speaking rate, 90%, 88, 60%. Text, lines, words, characters, actions, edit. Vertical nav, form control, links, headings.
All right, I've got headings on. We'll find out if that works.
Some readers of fantasy love to be dropped straight into unfamiliar settings and figure out what's going on from the map and clues in the context. They're explorers who relish the feeling of finding their way around an alien world, or maybe just the kind of...
1 second. Okay, two finger single tap does stop the speech immediately. Let's turn our speaking rate down a little bit more. So this is going to be a title that our speaking rate's going to need to be much slower.
Sounds, headings, links, form control, vertical nav, edit, characters, words, lines, text selection, speaking rate, 55%, 50%, 55%.
I think 55% is just about as slow as I can pretty much handle.
Text, lines, words, characters, edit, vertical nav, form control, links, headings.
All right, there we go. So we have our speaking rate at 55%.
Others find a flood of unexplained. Some readers of fantasy love to be dropped straight into unfamiliar settings and figure out what's going on from the map and clues in the context. They're explorers who relish the feeling of finding their way around an alien world, or maybe just the kind of people who enjoy tackling a jigsaw puzzle without looking at the picture.
Interesting.
Others find a flood of unexplained or half-explained terms distracting and annoying. They prefer to start with a roadmap, glossary, and nutshell history, so they can then concentrate on the story.
I really like this opening intro by the author and creator of the game. It kind of really sets the stage.
Which kind of reader are you?
Oh, which kind of reader am I? I'm not sure.
On with the story. Radio button. Check. 1 of 2.
Radio button check. So on with the story. Now I'm not sure if we were supposed to click anything or if that was just a wonderful intro. I liked it though. So there's a radio button check.
A little background first. If you on with the story. Radio button. Check.
Oh,
1
if
of 2.
we want a background, I suppose we can keep going. So I guess it would be a little helpful if we knew what that radio button check was for. I do believe the author's trying to keep it a lot more ergonomic. Is that the word I'm looking for? To kind of make it so you don't feel so structured, so like instruction bookish, kind of.
A little background first, if you please. Radio button. On check.
Okay, there
2
we
of
go.
2.
So we're actually getting our first taste of the choices part of the game. So we actually are going to double tap. You know, it's been a long time since I played a choices LLC type of game. So I'm a little rusty. So please excuse that.
Next. Button. Next.
And there's
button.
your really good UI. The UI is solid. I've got no lag. So even with my voice rate at 55%, I'm not getting any lag. I love to test the boundaries of games. I like to check and make sure my status bar isn't dropping down. I like to make sure that I'm not hearing other apps by touching the screen because I have very large fingers. I'm a very large gentleman, and my fingers tend to go where they go. I've also got haptic feedback on, so I'm definitely testing many of the boundaries. A lot of times on my first listens, I'll often push a title to its limits to see how much accessibility I can tinker with and basically clumsily mess up, and how quickly can I get myself back on target. So far, I've tried to fumble around a little bit. The UI is rock solid and clean. So definitely a 9 out of 9 for Newdeath Gaming when it comes to accessibility. This is preliminary, of course, but by before I even started recording, I was tinkering around quite a bit with the settings, looking for ways to kind of mess it up, looking for ways to kind of see if it would have a bug and everything was clean. No bugs, no problems. no issues. Sometimes games will activate the music player in the background because the game will sometimes have an issue with kind of voiceover, and you'll get all kinds of wonky things. None of that happens so far. Everything here is really supersonic clean here. All right, let's keep going.
A little background first, if you please. Radio
I
button. Unchecked. 2
want
of 2.
a little background. I would like to know. I'm a big lore fan. I want to know what's happened. I want to know more before I get into the meat of the story. And like I said, if this winds up being really, really good, and I expect it to be, we'll do a little series on the channel for it. I'll have a little background ambience going. Maybe I'll do a little sound effects. Maybe I'll have a little fun, do a little creative editing, because I'm really big at using accessible ambiences and tools and music to add to the story, to create a kind of entertainment for all of you.
On with the a little background first, if you please. Radio checked.
All right, good. So I've checked it. The checks are working great.
Next button.
The next button is active. Let's go ahead and get some background.
The discovery 4 centuries ago of.
Okay, now we're getting another title here.
Show stats. Choice of rebels. Show stats. Button.
All right, there's a show stats button. Let's find out how easy or hard it will be to open that menu and close it. So let's go ahead and show our stats. We're just practicing here. We're not going to do, this is not a real like playthrough of the entire game. And I will do a playthrough of the entire game for the channel, depending on how much everyone kind of likes it. If you all kind of think it's really cool. And sometimes I do it because I just like to play games.
The discover show stats.
Let's
button.
find our show stats button.
Choice of rebels. Back button.
All right, great. The back button is clean. There's no wonky back button, which is definitely a big pet peeve of mine. So the back button is clean.
Stats. Heading.
Nice heading. Let's try that heading.
Choice of rebels. Image.
Ooh.
Traits. Image.
Ooh, that heading
Clock.
is
Logo
crispy
other.
clean.
Wheel. Traits.
That is sweet. Nice, crispy, clean heading command working just fine. Let's do that 4-finger tap to top.
Choice of rebels.
Ooh,
Back button.
smooth. Let's try that 4-finger tap the bottom.
Next. Button.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. How about that middle?
Next. Button. Choice of rebels. Back button. Next. Button. Choice of rebels. Choice of rebels. Choice of rebels.
I never
Back
can
button.
get that 4-finger middle tap to work. Let's try vertical navigation.
Headings. Sounds. Audio ducking. Volume. Speaking rate. Words. Characters. Vertical navigation. Screen recording in progress. Choice of rebels. Back
Okay,
button.
so if I vertical navigation, I can hear if my screen recording's in progress. That's interesting.
Choice of rebels. Traits. Image. Not yet defined. Not yet defined.
Interesting. Vertical navigation's finding some very weird stuff.
Not yet defined. Form controls. Links. Vertical edit. Characters. Words. Lines. Text selection. Speaking rate. Volume. Audio ducking. Sounds. Headings. Stats. Heading not found. Heading not found. Choice of rebels. Explore image. Drag item.
Okay, that vertical navigation did something a little weird.
Activate. Explore image. Devout. 50%.
All right, so when I activated the vertical navigation, I must have moved into a different part of the UI. So that's good to keep in mind if the developers are listening to this review. So it does seem like vertical navigation will kind of interact with a couple of elements that might be a bit confusing to those who don't know how to get out of those elements. But again, your heading is crispy, clean, and perfect. I don't have an issue with getting out of this. So
Choice of rebels. Image.
So there's an
Swipe
image
up or down
there.
Traits. Choice. Achievements. Stats. Choice of rebels. Back button.
All right, so it seems that we're going to get that vertical navigation is going to bring up images. Now, mind you, if you are totally blind, then images are not going to mean anything to you. And you're definitely going to want those to be off because they're just going to be a distraction and they're going to get into the way. So I would say, for the most part, that's only a little problematic, but it's not a big deal. I'm not one of those persons that makes a big deal out of things like a thing that's not interfering with me getting in the way. If it does, what I mean is, it's not getting in the way as much as I am just hearing it. All right? So let's keep moving.
Stats. Heading.
So those are my things.
Achievements. Button.
So we've got achievements, which are great.
Stats. Head. Choice of rebels.
So let's go through
Back button.
all these particular items here.
Stats. Heading.
Stats heading.
Achievements. Button.
Achievements. That's interesting.
Choice of rebels. Image.
Choice of rebels image.
Traits. Image.
Traits image.
Charisma.
So probably if you're using this as a voiceover user, these little images are not going to be much help. But I've kind of experienced this in games before where you'll hear exactly what you need to hear, then you'll get an image kind of denotion kind of being spoken. It's not a big deal.
Not yet defined.
Not yet defined.
Combat.
Combat.
Not yet defined.
Not yet defined.
Intellect. Not yet defined.
Oh, I don't know what that means, not yet defined, but I guess it means, I'm guessing, and a little bit more help and maybe a note by the developer what these things mean. You could tell us these are going to be something that are defined once you start playing.
Ruthless. 50%.
Now that I understand, 50% and stuff like that. You know, I'd really like if games would start, instead of just using percentages and things like that, it would be kind of cute if we can get a little deeper into role playing and perhaps we can say, instead of 50%, we can say balanced. Or if we were really one way or less, it would be weak or it'd be strong. I really wish we could get away from numbers and get more into role playing. But you know, numbers are reliable, numbers are definitely structured, and numbers definitely give you the information you need without translation. So definitely, I can't complain about that.
Compassionate. 50%. Skeptical. 50%.
These are nice. So some really deep attributes about our particular player. And I really don't know who we are or what we are. And we're definitely going to try to dip into it a tiny bit.
Devout. 50%.
Devout.
Homelander. 50%.
Now, what I remember from the previous Choice of Dragons games are that your dragon had a lot of different personality things and quirks and your typical kind of like really deep role-playing kind of experience where you definitely had a lot of different personality things going on. And depending on what behaviors you exhibited, you could increase or decrease those different type of personalities. And depending on what kind of treasures and other items you found, or your behaviors, your alignment-based behaviors, like say you ate an innocent person, you might dip into some evil alignment. And say you went out of your way to help somebody, you might dip into some good alignment. So there's some perfunctory alignment changes that existed in Choice of Dragons. So I'm not sure if Choice of Rebels is going to have some of that same perfunctory element. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to go back and forth between good and evil. I'm also curious to know what amount of interaction your personality is going to have within the game. So that's really exciting.
Cosmopolitan. 50%. Anarchy. 0.
Wow.
Notable members of your rebellion. Radio button. Check.
Wow,
1
this
of
is
4.
cool. So, wow, you got people that are part of your rebellion. So this is great. This is definitely much more advanced than Choice of Dragons.
How others see you. Radio button. Unchecked. 2 of 4.
Ooh, that's interesting. I'd like to know how people see me.
World index. Radio button. Unchecked. 3 of 4.
World index, how people see you. I'd love a little bit more information about these, but they might be part of what the developer wants us to kind of learn on our own. I'm not sure.
Content warnings. Radio button. Unchecked.
Oh, you could even
4 of
turn
4.
on content warnings. That could be very useful if you have maybe a younger player attempting.
Next. Button.
All right, let's go ahead and jump back.
Choice of rebels. Back button.
That's
Choice
going to
of-
be good. All right. So we kind of know getting back is easy as 4-finger tapping the top of the screen. And with a single finger double tap, we are smooth and cleanly back into our initial UI.
Choice of rebels. Heading. Show stats. Button. The discovery 4 centuries ago of.
Ooh, okay, let's get some lore here. So let's get into this a little bit and find out if we can make a choice. Everything is clean and smooth and there's no issues here.
Thurgy. The discovery 4 centuries ago of.
Okay, now let's find out how much of the text is going to sound smooth with our voiceover. So I have Samantha, so you may not like my voice, so you might want to use your own voices if this isn't very pleasurable to your ears.
Theurgy.
Theurgy. Okay, so that's going to be a little hard word. Let's see if we can individually...
Sounds. On. Headings. Links. Form control. Vertical nav. Edit. Characters. Words.
Let's see if we can spell it out.
Theurgy.
Theurgy. Theurgy. Let's get character.
Characters. Cap T.
Capital
Tango.
T.
H.
H.
E.
E.
Echo.
T. H. E.
U.
U.
Uniform.
Ooh, this is a weird word.
R.
Romeo.
G.
G.
Y.
Y. Okay, so it's a made-up word. Theurgy. Sounds like a made-up word. So the good thing is, word by word navigation, character by character navigation is working. I wonder if line by line navigation is working.
Words. Lines. The discovery 4 centuries ago of Theurgy. The discovery 4 fueled by other people's blood.
Line by
allowed the
line
small.
navigation is working. So this game is incredibly accessible and kind of streamlined. I mean, all my rotor functions are working beautifully.
Text selection. Speaking rate. Volume. Audio ducking. Sounds. Headings.
All right, great.
Heading not found. Thumb arc. Mightiest of the Theurges. Now holds unchecked authority over a vast domain.
All right, so Theurgus must be some kind of wizard or mage of some kind.
His mages systematically harvest the blood of.
All right, so now we're getting some information here. So they are harvesting the blood,
Helots. His mages systematically harvest the blood of. Helots.
Helots, Lots of terminology, so you're definitely going to want to take notes here.
The hegemony's lowest caste, using extraction machines called harrowers. Through a secret process, they then refine it into ethereal blood, which can be used for Theurgy. Much of it goes to fuel the 9 Great Border.
Interesting. Very deep story so far. I wonder if we turn on... Okay, I want to figure out this heading thing.
Links. Headings. Choice of rebels. Heading. Heading not found.
All right, if there's only one heading, you're going to get an error. If you try to go down and there's no more heading, you're going to get that error. So that's fine. Let's try line by line navigation.
Links. Headings. Sounds. Audio ducking. Volume. Speaking rate. Text select. Lines. Choice of rebels.
Now when I go to headings and I switch back to lines, I am not able to go back.
Show stats. Button.
Okay, let's...
The discovery 4 centuries
there we
ago.
go.
The discovery 4 centuries ago, fueled by other people's blood, allowed the small.
There we go. I think line by line navigation is how we are going to pretty much do this. If we do a Let's Play, and I will definitely do one. If you all are interested in this, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave me a comment if you're interested. Again, this is Choice of Rebels by Choices LLC. You'll find the link in my description. It is $6.99. It is definitely 100% worth it, and you definitely want to support developers who make games for people who are blind and visually impaired / visually diverse, and that really goes a long way into making sure that more titles like this come out.
Nation of Kerrigan to conquer its neighboring realms.
All right, so I know I'm butchering the story by jumping around and talking.
And unite them under a Kerrigan hegemony. The
Oh, interesting, huh?
Thumidar, mightiest of the Theurges, now holds unchecked authority over a vast domain.
Okay, we're getting some story here.
His mages systematically harvest the blood of Helots.
All right.
The hegemony's lowest caste, using extraction machines called harrowers. Through a secret process, they then refine it into ethereal blood, which can be used for Theurgy. Much of it goes to fuel the 9 Great Border wards that seal off the Kerrigan.
I think I'm just going to have it read the whole page. Let's try 2 fingers swipe down.
That seal off the Kerrigan hegemony from its external enemies. Like all 4 provinces of the hegemony, your home of Shayard is governed by an archon chosen by the Thumidar. Archon Phrygia Lelatau comes from a particularly favored Shayardi noble family, which has stayed on top for more than 2 decades. The provincial nobility is kept in check by institutions of the hegemony, such as the ecclesiasts, priests who judge wrongdoers and preach submission to authority, the elasters, armed and brutal law enforcement squads, and the cryptists, an order of hegemonic assassin spies who infiltrate suspected hives of sedition. The hegemony's religion centers on the Karagan canon, which spells out in great detail how people should behave. It was revealed by the merciful angels, who emanate from Sthonus, source of all order and purpose. Zeus, the enemy of Sthonus, tries endlessly to consume Sthonus's orderly realm but cannot ultimately prevail. Anyone who speaks against the hegemony or the theurges is accused of serving Zeus, as you inevitably will be. For more detail, click the Show Stats button above and choose World Index. It provides background information about the world, as well as an alphabetical glossary of unfamiliar words. Don't worry about remembering everything you read there. The World Index is available throughout the story. The stats page also includes a link to content warnings. Choice of Riddles, Uprising, button.
Nice. So it's great that they gave us the information we needed to know. So we don't have to take extensive notes to understand all this beautiful lore. We can definitely go back and check out the world information, which is like our own little kind of like wiki, which we can kind of like know what's going on. So that's spectacular. That's really accessible and definitely very streamlined. Wow, we have come a extreme long way with text-based games, and this is awesome. All right, let's find out if I've done everything I need to do with my background.
Choice of Riddles, Uprising. Choice of Riddles. The stats page. Choice of Riddles. Choice of Riddles. Choice of Riddles. Uprising. Button.
All right,
Choice of Riddles. Uprising.
it would be nice if we swipe down, if the button would become immediately available. It feels like, you know, and I can kind of notice there's a little black bar here at the bottom of the screen because I have a little bit of vision, and as you know, blindness is a spectrum. And with my spectrum of blindness, I can notice there's a little black bar here at the bottom of the
Choice
screen,
of Riddles.
which
Uprising.
I
Button.
know is a button. So if you are doing this and you're trying to figure out what do you do next, so you can touch navigate down to the bottom, and that seems like that would end this part of the lore, the pre-story information.
Choice of Riddle. The stats page also includes a link. Choice of Riddles. Uprising.
But it'd be great
Button.
if you could swipe. Okay, this time when I swiped, I got the button. And I'm, like I said, this is what I do on first listens. I move around, I mess with things, I see which elements work together, which don't, which will require me to move around my finger a little bit more. Mind you, everything here is clearly labeled, everything here is clean, everything here is efficient, enhanced, accessible, and with the exception of a couple of the really complicated lore terms, you're going to have a little bit of voiceover trouble reading those. Mind you, voiceover doesn't like sci-fi or fantasy. I know because I write sci-fi, fantasy. I write lots of fiction, and voiceover, it's like, you stop it! Voiceover does not like the words I make up. It does not like the creature names that I make up, the continental names I make up, or the magical spells. So definitely, if your voiceover is having trouble reading the terminology, that doesn't mean that there's a problem with the title. It just means voiceover sometimes doesn't like to pronounce certain words. Heck, if we have trouble as human beings pronouncing words, so we shouldn't expect all of our technology to be perfect at doing everything. And obviously, there's probably some tools that those of you who are extremely expert at understanding your voiceover tools, there's probably something you could do to fix or make better some of the pronunciations. And we're out of time. So we're going to go ahead and just push this button.
Choice of Riddles. Uprising. Button. Prologue. Image. Logo other. Sign. IIGLA. Particularly favored Shayardine noble family, which law stayed on top for more than 2 decades. The provincial nobility is kept in check by
the whole
institutions.
story just like that. Okay, so it's just going to start reading the whole story. There's going to be, I'm going to go to the top. I'm going to just have it read the whole page by 2 fingers swiping down.
Prologue. Image. Logo other. Sign.
And that's going to be the prologue, which is great. Everything's labeled.
Noble family, which law stayed on top for more than 2 decades. The provincial nobility is kept in check by institutions. No one ever asks when your rebellion began. They assume the answer is obvious. They would be surprised to learn that it began 8 years before any price was put on your head, before any priest damned you as a servant of Zeus, before your name was known to anyone outside the Shayard Rim. It began the first time you found yourself eye to eye with the man who intended your death. He could have killed you with relatively little consequence. All the power of the Kerrigan hegemony stood behind him. You were just a provincial child. And even as a child, something in you understood. Under his unhurried, murderous stare, you grasped that in the end it would come down to yourself or the hegemony. Not incidentally, it was also the first time you had been confronted with the intensity of the hegemony's violence to its lower castes. Radio button. Check. 1 of 3. The hegemony's persecution of even the mildest of religious heresies. Radio button. Uncheck. 2 of 3. The hegemony's suppression of the folkways of other nations, including my own. Radio button. Uncheck. 3 of 3. Next. Button.
All right, I think I'm going to be using this method. I'm going to be doing the 2-finger swipe down method for whenever I read these pages. I'm definitely going to keep the speaking rate at 55%, which is perfect. It's got those little clicks, so that's fine with me. I like those little clicks. It tells my brain that we're going to read another passage. Samantha's doing a pretty decent job at reading. Everything here is clean and super well. This is definitely a 9 out of 9 for everything, and that's my highest ranking, 9. So it's like a 10 out of 10, but I've always liked that whole 9 out of 9. I just love the number 9. So this is, again, a 9 out of 9 for accessibility. Everything here is clean. I've tried to break everything I possibly can. I've tried to clumsy finger everything I can. It's not happening. It's not letting me mess up anything. Everything here is easy, and even when I've gone beyond the parameters of the UI, I've found going back super easy. There's a brief page animation I want to mention. If you turn on an animation, the little black bar is going to flip up to the top. It doesn't make any differences, so if you want to leave a little page animation on, I guess it kind of mimics you turning the page. I think it's kind of cute in a way. So if you have any kind of spectrum in your blindness that allows you to kind of notice little screen images, if that's something that makes you feel good, go ahead and do it. Again, keeping in mind, folks, that blindness is a spectrum. Some people can see light, some people can. It really is different depending on the person. So this is really excellent. I really like this. This is Choice of Rebels. Please pick it up. You'll find it in the link for it in the iOS store in the description. I am, of course, Michael Gray. This is Newdeath Gaming. Thank you very much for hanging out with me on this first listen. This is really great. And the developer is Choices LLC, Choice of Rebel. So thank you very much, folks. And we'll hear you again soon on our next first listen. Take care.